And welcome, sports fans, to today's Roundtable. And what a night we had last night in high school basketball. Of course, we were online on SEMOsportszone.com with the webcast from the Campbell Invitational Tournament Finals, which we'll talk about here momentarily. But a very busy week in high school basketball with all these tournaments going on. Finally coming to an end last night. But what a great opening week for high school basketball here in Southeast Missouri. And we'll touch on those results in just a few moments. And also we'll be talking about basically how the scene's working out in high school basketball after 1 week, what we're looking forward to going into December. And also we'll touch on high school wrestling for today. We'll have Travis Quertermous in to talk about the wrestling scene here in Southeast Missouri. Very competitive. It's already underway. And we're going to get the lowdown on the teams and individual wrestlers here in Southeast Missouri. And also we'll touch on the final awards for high school football here in Southeast Missouri. We've got awards from Southeast Missouri and from SEMO Sports Zone, so be sure to stick around for that. We'll pretty much wrap up the football season with the postseason awards for today in our final 15 poll from SEMOsportszone.com. And also we'll talk about SEMO Sports Zone a little later on in our program today, so a lot to get to. And be sure to email us if you want to get involved in our show, sports@semosportszone.com. We'll take your emails here on the air if you want to get involved in our show. And again, that's sports@semosportszone.com. And let's take a look at those scores from last night, and we'll start from the Campbell Invitational Tournament and the finals that we broadcast live on SEMO Sports Zone last night. It was Bernie over Holcomb, 54-52. That game went into overtime. What a game that was. And very low-scoring game. I think it was only like a 7-2 score after one quarter. Very defensive-oriented game. And it come down to basically whoever had the ball with the opportunity to last. And Bernie had just made a few more plays there in overtime, and Holcomb had its opportunities late. Jamie Massey was at the line, actually down one. He sunk the first shot, missed the second shot, and Bernie almost won the game there at the end of regulation. B.J. Jennings drove the length of the court and put up a layup with just a fraction of a second too late, so it went into overtime. And from there, Jamie Massey actually fouled out in the overtime period, and Holcomb was already out with James Vance and Michael Glover. They're three big guys that they really depend on for their team, and they were all out for most of that overtime period, and Bernie took advantage and held off a last-second opportunity by the Holcomb Hornets. But a great game between these two teams. We'll certainly probably see these two teams later on in the year, possibly in the Bloomfield Christmas Tournament, and later on in the possibly in the district tournament as well. And we'll talk a little bit more about how that district's going to look at the end of the year later on. But a great game between those two teams. You can watch that replay today here on YHC TV at noon, and 6:30 Sunday at 3 o'clock. And it'll be available tomorrow, Sunday, on SEMOsportszone.com to view online. So a great matchup and a great two teams to look forward to for the rest of this year. And moving on, we have the third place game. It was Twin Rivers over Risco, 71-63. Twin Rivers coming away with third place in that tournament. And the fifth place game, it was Bloomfield defeating Campbell, 70-48. And moving on to the Oran Invitational Finals. We have a final at Scott County Central over Advance, 75-71. So Scott County Central wins that tournament for about the maybe fifth, sixth straight year. They've dominated that Oran Invitational for the past handful of years, and they continue to win it. And even though they're losing player by player, they put the team back together and win that Oran Invitational once again. In the third place game, it was Oran over Malden, 82-63. Oran, very competitive team this year. Going to be fun to watch Oran Eagles make a run this year. They're in Class 2. Now, in the fifth place game, it was Chaffee over Kelly, 68-59. And moving on to other games in the Woodland Tournament Finals, it was Leopold over Scott City, 55-37. And this is one team to look out for. Leopold, playing out of Class 1, had a competitive team last year, and basically just 1 year matured this year. Very tough team. Kyle Stroder, one of the top guards here in Southeast Missouri, standing around 6'5", 6'6", very talented guard there at Leopold. That's one team to look out for later on in the year. And in the third place game, it was Oak Ridge over Perryville, 61 to 50. In that third place game, Oak Ridge over Perryville. Now in the fifth place game, it was Woodland over Meadow Heights, 69 to 42. And in other games, we have Sykesdale over Dexter in the SEMO Conference, 55 to 23. A game taking place in Sykeston last night. And also we have South Iron over Poplar Bluff in a close one, 54 to 53. Impressive win for South Iron. I think they play out of Class 1, if I'm not mistaken. Class 1 over Class 5 Poplar Bluff. Very impressive victory for South Iron. That's another team to look out for later on in the year in South Iron. Very tough team, especially being a team 4 classes up in high school basketball. And in other games, we have Duchesne over Notre Dame, 63 to 48. And in the Boys Bulldog Classic from South Pemiscot, in those finals, it was Gosnell, Arkansas, defeating South Pemiscot 69 to 55. So South Pemiscot making a great run in that tournament and losing in the final to Gosnell, Arkansas. Gosnell usually a good boys program there in Arkansas. So South Pemiscot coming in with second place in their own tournament. And the girls, in the third place game, it was Crothersville defeating Hayti. We didn't quite get the score in there. That's Crothersville defeating Hayti in that third place game. Now in the girls Farmington Invitational semifinals last night was Dexter defeating Poplar Bluff handily, 67 to 28. Dexter is the top seed, Poplar Bluff the fourth seed. So Dexter coming away with 2 straight sizable victories in that Farmington Invitational tournament so far, and they'll match up with Miller Career Academy in the finals, whom defeated defeated Notre Dame 61 to 43. So for the second straight year, we've got Dexter and Miller Career Academy in those finals, and it's worth noting that Miller Career won that tournament last year over Dexter. Got a rematch set for today in those Farmington Invitational Tournament finals. So we'll certainly look forward to that game later on today there in Farmington. And in other games, we've got the Girls Bulldog Classic Finals from South Pemiscot. New Matter County Central defeated South Pemiscot in those finals. So New Matter County Central comes away with a victory of the Girls Bulldog Classic. And those are the scores to report on from last night. Well into basketball season now. Very busy first week in girls and boys basketball. A lot of tournaments to kick off that first week, and we're certainly looking forward to the rest of the season. Got some great games that lined out for this week, especially last night and those championship games. And we'll certainly be looking forward to the season getting underway for Southeast Missouri. And we'll take a break, and we're going to be back with Travis Quertermous, talk about these basketball games from last night. Also, we're going to talk about in depth of high school wrestling here in the SEMO area, as well as wrap up the football season with the postseason awards and the final 15 poll from SEMOSportsZone.com. So don't go anywhere. We'll be back with more coming up.
Southeast Missouri Mutual Insurance is celebrating our 100th year. We started protecting rural farmers way back in 1910, insuring folks no one else would. Southeast Missouri Mutual Insurance has been a family business for 4 generations, and we continue that tradition today, providing solid home, farm, and commercial insurance at very competitive rates. When the ice storm hit us, we were out there with you. All of our claims were processed within days, and we will continue to provide the best coverage and the best service for the next 100 years. Southeast Missouri Mutual Insurance, a century of service.
At Glenn St. Kennett, we have a lot full of inventory and the best rebates of the year. I'm Danny Ford, owner of Glenn St. We just want the opportunity to talk to you about your next car or truck. The rebates are the best of the year and interest rates the lowest to work with. It's a great time to buy, and our people are excited to help you make the right choice. We realize you have a lot of dealers to choose from, but I can assure you, no one appreciates your business like we do. Glenn St. and Kennett, and God bless our troops.
I want to stay connected to you. I like the Call Audubell Hearing Center at 1-800-499-8786 or visit one of our locations in Dexter and Poplar Bluff, Missouri today.
And we're back now along with Travis Quertermous. And Travis, we had some great basketball this past week, and a very busy week with all these tournaments going on, even some SEMO conference matchups. So very impressive week of high school basketball.
Way to kick the season off. A lot of impressive games last night, especially that matchup last night between Holcomb and Bernie. That was a very exciting game. Bernie just wore them down, I think, there at the end, and Holcomb got in a little bit of foul trouble, and then the Vance boy went out with an injury, with a cut to his forehead.
Well, yeah, I think it was maybe his nose area. We saw that last night, and boy, he really got opened up.
Did it? Well, I noticed I noticed they had a bandage on his forehead, and they had that cold compress.
Yeah,
I just wonder if he needed stitches, why he didn't go back in. But he went out with some type of injury there to the nose or the forehead, and that really hurt him. And then, well, that Holcomb just they've got another kid, I know, a guard down injured.
Tyler
we
Lewis
mentioned before they went on the air, and Bernie they're running 9-10 guys in there and running the floor all night long, and that's just not Holcomb's game. They like that slow half-court game. But they hung in there.
Yeah, Bernie really keeps up the intensity with that rotation they've got. They pressed Holcomb the whole game pretty much.
They did.
And even
Forced
after
a lot of turnovers.
Even after rebounds, they were applying the full court pressure, and that's what it just wore them down. And Ryan Reeves really went the length of the game last night. I don't think he came out, and he had to handle the ball for the most part of the night against that press. And
that's right.
He really got gassed there at the end, because once they really needed him to make some plays there in overtime, his legs were just gone.
And Bernie's rotating 9 and 10 kids in. It's a very deep squad. And I really thought when it came out, Bernie just couldn't buy a shot, and Holcomb was really controlling the interior. But then in the second quarter, behind Jennings, raining those threes, the kid can get hot at any time, and really got him back into the game there. They really took over in the second quarter, and back and forth game, exciting finish, just everything you could ask for from a championship game.
Yeah, impressive performance by Jamie Massey. Yeah, I think he had 21 points, but boy, they were probably the toughest 20-point points he's had to come by in his career, and he had some tough shots. He didn't really have his way on the block. They were really physical, getting him off the block and really double-teaming him once he got the ball. But he had some shots up around the free throw line he had to take, and he knocked him down.
He's a good free throw shooter. And you see, just in one game, you can already see a lot of improvement in Jamie's game. Jamie didn't really like to get in there and get physical last year. You could push him around a little bit. But he hung in there. They were double and triple teaming him all night long, and he hung in there. 21 tough points. He's more than just 6'7". He's got some skills to go with that, and it looks like he's added a little toughness to his game, and he's going to carry that Holcomb team, and they're going to have another great season.
Sure, they've got a great lineup. Reeves out front, and Tyler Lewis in there to help carry that load last night in the backcourt. Right. We could see a different outcome, but it's going to be great to see those two teams going at it for the rest of the year, and it's going to be a very competitive Class 2. And we'll talk about that in a moment and move on to some other games here, but a very competitive Class 2 there in southeast Missouri. And looking at other games, Scott County Central winning that Orion tournament once again. I know they've probably gone on 5-6 years.
This is at least the 5th year in a row they've cut down the nets over there at Orion. And though they took it on the chin over at the Riverbend Classic, just a little bit outmatched, being the smallest school in that tournament, but they came roaring back, had 3 good games. Advance really pressed them last night, gave them a good game, but they hung in there, and that's a good team. They're going to be a little deeper this year than they were last year. They just played 5 kids last year, but they're a little deeper this year, and it'll be interesting to see how Otto Porter's little brother Jeffrey, who's a freshman, he's gotten a little bit of playing time, and they're going to bring him along slowly. If he emerges, Scott County Central is going to be the team to beat once again in Class 1. But they're going to have some challengers this year. That Leopold, as you mentioned in the outset, very talented team. They basically bring their whole team back from last year, and they were very competitive last year. And they're actually in the same district with Scott Central this year.
Yeah.
So this will be the first time in a while, and you can't rule out Oak Ridge. Oak Ridge has got a pretty solid team. The Blue boy down there stands about 6'5". That's pretty good size for a Class 1 team.
Oh, yeah.
So there's going to be some. That's going to be an interesting district. Scott Central, of course, is still the king of the mountain until somebody knocks them off. But they're going to have some challengers. Then you can't discount, of course, the teams that are going to come out of the district over at Gideon. Briscoe was off to a slow start, but they've got some injury issues as well. They'll be there at the end, and then look out for South Iron. Well, they showed already what they can do.
Big win last night.
Poplar Bluff last night. So, yeah, Class 1 is going to be very interesting in Southeast Missouri. All the classes are going to be very competitive, I think.
Sure will. And in the SEMO conference, we had a few matchups. Charleston looking strong already with a victory over Dexter, and 2 impressive victories over the Riverbend over Thanksgiving weekend.
Especially over West Memphis, North Little Rock is what I meant to say. They've got 2 or 3 Division I prospects on that team, and Charleston beat them. I mean, they never seem to rebuild. They just reload over there with Coach Farmer. He's got a great program, and they're already ranked number 1 in Class 3, defending Class 3 state champions, and they look primed for another big run.
They do. They got a great senior class. Ryan Parham, a great point guard, defender, and pretty much does it all for the Blue Jays. A couple guys.
Got the Bogan brothers.
Michael Hull.
Very
solid guard.
He's emerged. You know, he didn't get a lot of playing time last year, but he's really emerged. He had 2 big games for Charleston over at the Riverbend Classic. So they just
and they play about 9-10 kids.
They do, and they're deeper this year than they were last year.
This is probably the deepest Charleston team I've ever seen.
So they're going to be very tough to beat.
And they keep up the intensity all game long, kind of like we talked about Bernie. They stay after you.
Absolutely. Dexter got a little taste of that the other night.
Yeah.
Of course, Dexter, bless their hearts, the injury bug has bit this squad hard.
It really has.
They've got 2 starters out for the season with Jonathan Page and Cody Nelden. Chase Young, probably the most talented player on that team, recovering from a broken leg, suffered at the end of the football season. His little brother Chandler, as a freshman, has suffered a concussion in practice, hasn't played yet. So they've just really been bit hard by the injury bug. They were going to struggle this year anyway, but now when you can't even put your starters on the floor, it's just. And they took it on the chin last night at Sykeston again, and it's just going to be a tough season, I'm afraid, for the Dexter Bearcats.
Yeah, it sure
At least
is.
for the boys.
Yeah.
Expecting great things out of the girls this year.
Sure, the girls having a good run in that Farmington tournament so far. Man, trying to get over this cold here.
I'm rolling in the same boat with you there.
Talking doesn't help. But, kind of wrapping up the week as we saw. Great tournament down there in South Pemiscot, that Bulldog Classic. South Pem as kind of the team coming out of there, even though they lost to Gosnell in that final. They're the kind of the team that made waves in that tournament.
That's right. Knocked off Caruthersville in triple overtime. Wow, what an exciting game to start the season. Caruthersville got in foul trouble down there early with Monroe, and he eventually fouled out of that game. But can't take anything away from South Pemiscot. Coach Bidewell's building a good program down there, and South Pemiscot's going to make some noise. That district's going to go 5 teams deep when you throw South Pem into the mix. Yeah. With the top 4 teams that are coming back from last year, and it's really going to be exciting to watch. They're going to make some noise down there in that Boot Hill Conference. Yeah, South Pemiscot.
We could have. We were expecting 4 solid teams. We talk about Bernie, Holcomb, Portageville, Hayti that were there last year.
Right.
And from there, it mattered about South Pem and where they were going to be in this year, and that looks, you can throw them into the mix now. There's going to be 5 teams in that district that can come away with it. Can you imagine your first round game potentially playing 2 teams in the first round?
2 of those teams will match up.
2 teams in the first round got the potential to win the district, and you hardly ever see that in the district tournament.
That's
2
true.
teams in the first round with the potential to win it.
I think most observers thought that Bernie and Caruthersville were going to be the top 2 teams in that district, but
Caruthersville's up in 3.
That's right. You're right, 3. But Bernie, but now South Pem has emerged, and they knocked off Caruthersville already. Yeah. So, it's going to be exciting.
Sure is. And speaking of Class 3, it's going to be tough as it ever has been. Caruthersville, Charleston, and Kennett, and even New Madrid's coming on. Kennett's up to 4, but New Madrid is coming on.
That's right. Willie Jimerson, just a sophomore, started as a freshman for them last year, and he's continued to improve. He had 2 big games at the Riverbend Classic, scored about 25 points in both games, I think. So, New Madrid's going to be much better. than they were the last couple of years, and of course they were very, very good a few years ago, and then they've fallen on lean times, and now they look to really be back, make some noise there. I still think it's Charleston's district to lose, but of course Caruthersville gave them all they wanted last year in the semifinals of the district play, and they'll be back and they'll be better. I think Caruthersville doesn't quite have their basketball legs under them yet. Of course, they went deep into the playoffs all the way to the Final Four in football, and most of those boys are coming back now trying to get their basketball legs under them. But that very talented team, and New Madrid will be right there to make some noise as well.
Yeah, it's worth noting. I forgot about this over in Rector, that Rector Hall of Fame shootout. It was Valley View defeating Kennett by a handful, about I think about 5-6 points, if I'm not mistaken. And that's a nice performance by Kennett. Valley View, very tough team out of Jonesboro. Pretty big school they're going up against. So Kennett, it's going to take them some time to work some guys in. They got some guys out. I know Primer's
still out with an injury from football. So that's a team that's going to come along and make some noise, I think, in Class 4.
Mm-hmm. That Class 4 district tournament is going to be very competitive this year.
It really is.
Sykes and Notre Dame dominate that district, but adding two teams, Cape Central and Kennett, is going to make it much more interesting.
Yeah, Cape is moving down. That surprised a lot of people. But they're moving down to Class 4 for at least a couple of seasons, and Kennett is moving up. And Kennett will be there at the end. They need to get some kids healthy. They play again this afternoon down there in the Hall of Fame Classic at Rector. I forget who they play. Sykeston plays the host team. They play Rector this afternoon down there as well before kicking off the SEMO Conference Tournament on Monday.
Sure. That'll be a fun tournament to watch. It always is.
Top to bottom, really a competitive tournament. And Sykeston's off to a great start. They're ranked number 1 in Class 4.
Yeah.
So it's that'll be exciting. Jackson's a team, I think, to keep your eye on, along with New Madrid. New Madrid's the 6th seed, but they could very well come in there and knock Cape off. Cape struggled with St. Pius.
Yeah, there's talk that Cape Central's
team in turmoil right now.
So you could certainly see New Madrid advance over that game, and at Jackson Notre Dame, I want to see what these two teams have. Jackson Notre Dame, it's kind of unclear what they're going to have coming back.
Yeah, a lot of observers think Notre Dame is going to be a little down from what they've been. They're going to have a very young team, not very many seniors. Carson King from Jackson be one of the premier players in Southeast Missouri this year. He's a young man to really keep your eye on. So Jackson's going to be solid again this year. They struggled last year, but that was a young team that was taking their lumps, and the Indians ought to be back full force this year in basketball. Very good team.
Sure. All right, and the girls, talking about the girls shortly, Dexter playing Miller Career Academy today in the Farmington Invitational Tournament Final. Another rematch of last year's not only tournament finals, but they matched up in the quarterfinals. Was that
sectionals?
Sectionals
last year. Yeah.
I think it's quarterfinals.
Was it quarterfinals? Okay, could have been
last year. Yeah. So tough team for Dexter to go up against once again.
Dexter had a very good team last year, but they couldn't get over the Miller Career hump, and they really put it on our girls in both times they played them last year. So, but another year stronger. Miller Career lost their best player from last year, accounted for the bulk of their scoring. So they're hopefully our girls can go up there and justify that number 1 seed. Didn't they decide that by a coin toss?
Yeah, they basically
between the two teams.
Votes, yeah.
So hopefully they can justify that and come away with a big win.
Sure, it should be fun to see that final there in Farmington. So now let's move on to high school wrestling. High school wrestling here in Southeast Missouri. What can you tell us about high school wrestling this year?
Well, high school wrestling has kicked off in the last couple of weeks. Of course, the top 2 teams in the SEMO Conference in the SEMO area always Jackson and Farmington. They've at the SEMO Conference tournament, Farmington won it last year by just a few points, and Jackson had won it 2 years ago again over Farmington by just a few points. So those 2 schools are they're the dominant programs in Southeast Missouri. Coach Wachter up at Jackson has been there for 31 years. I think they start teaching those kids to wrestle as soon as they can walk. He's built a great program up there. They're very dominant, top to bottom. Some kids to keep your eye on. The Risenbachler kid is returning from state. Tyler Rush and his brother, I think, also both went to state last year. They're both back. They've got a young man named Josh Stone at 182. But from top to bottom, they're just loaded. So and Farmington the same way. They always they have a very strong program. Again, just like another school we mentioned in basketball, Charleston, I think they just never seem to rebuild. They just reload. So those are the two teams that will no doubt be dominant as far as competition goes. Jackson and New Madrid already squared off. I think New Madrid won one contest. They had 195. They did get a win, but Jackson dominated the rest of the duel. The Dexter Bearcats had their first competition this past week. It was a 3-team duel at Sikeston with Sikeston and Notre Dame. They did defeat Notre Dame. They lost to Sikeston. So the Bearcats still have some kids that are trying to cut some weight, not wrestling. So we've got some kids that normally would wrestle JV that are wrestling varsity right now. We've got one young man, my son Logan, normally wrestles at 182, but he's recovering from a concussion that he got in the last game of the year playing football. But he should be back hopefully, and if not this week, the next week for the Big Tiger Classic. So once all the pieces fall into place for Dexter, they should be fine. They've got a new head coach. Rick Schwab has been the wrestling coach for about the past 5 seasons. He's built a great program, but he's moved on now. His assistant, James Sneed, has taken over as the head coach, and I'm sure he will continue to build that program. Dexter's varsity is wrestling today up at the Acton Invitational in St. Louis. They did very well there last year, won several gold medals. The freshmen are wrestling at North County in the Raider Roundup. So we've got kind of a split squad there today.
Yeah.
Sikeston also has a new head coach, Coach Lowe. They're very young. They only bring back 2 state qualifiers last year, but they were very impressive, especially Nick Nichols. He was dominant in football, and he went to state last year as a first-year wrestler, and he is very impressive. He's much more skilled than he was last year even. So he wrestles at 195, may drop to 182. He was very good. They've got 2 Destinant brothers, Jacob especially is very talented. So they're very good. They'll send several wrestlers to state. One school I don't know a lot about right now is Poplar Bluff. Their program has been traditionally very strong, but they've been down the last couple of seasons. We'll see them in Dexter along with Notre Dame again on Thursday night. We've got New Madrid coming to town on Tuesday night. So New Madrid is a team that they've been one of the weaker wrestling programs in southeast Missouri, but Coach Pixley over there, Arlen Pixley, he's building that program back up. They had 1 state qualifier last year in Austin Cummings at 182 pounds. He's back this year, so they look like they've got a bigger squad. Cape Central, usually middle of the pack. They've got a young team as well, only 3 or 4 seniors. So the one team that is really kind of hard to figure this year has been Notre Dame. Coach Mark Stevener came out of retirement to help them get that program started 4 seasons ago. And he was building a good program over there, had a lot of kids that come out for wrestling. But then this year they're down to 10 wrestlers. And their best wrestler, Trevor Foltz, who was a state qualifier last year, who was favored to medal this year as a senior at 182 or 195, for some reason has chosen not to wrestle. It's really odd. He was at, both my boys went to Mizzou for a wrestling camp, and the Notre Dame team was there, and Trevor was there with him. So I don't know if he's sustained an injury of some kind, or I don't know exactly what's going on there, but that's a real blow to that program. So they're not going to win many matches just because they'll have to forfeit so many weight classes. But wrestling's off. It's off to a great start. One thing I will say, at the field house, the biggest turnout I've ever seen for a high school wrestling match, not counting a big tournament like the Tiger Classic or the SEMO Conference Tournament, the field house was packed. And so I really hope that means wrestling's starting to build a following, and who knows, if we find some sponsors, maybe we can televise a few wrestling matches on YHC or SEMO Sports Zone this year. Dexter's got a few more home meets this year. Normally we only had 2, maybe 3, and I think we've got 5 or 6 meets, including 2 this upcoming week. So wrestling's a great sport. It's not so much a team sport, although you do earn points for your team depending on if you win by pinfall, you get 6 points. If it's a technical fault, it's 5 points. If it's a decision, 3 points, and so forth. So you do earn team points, but wrestling is an individual sport. It's the conditioning is just intense that these boys do. I mean, you think football is a grind. You should see the way these wrestlers work out. Their matches only last for 6 minutes, But you can tell the ones that aren't in shape, if it goes to the third round, they wrestle 3 2-minute rounds, they are gassed.
Yeah.
They are out of steam if they're not. And a lot of matches are lost just because the kid he's just too tired to continue. But it's very exciting, a lot of good competition. We've got a lot of outstanding wrestlers here in Southeast Missouri. Haven't really touched on our neighbors to the north, St. Genevieve and Park Hills. St. Gen is usually very strong. Park Hills will be better. Those two have already matched off. St. Gen did win that duel pretty handily against Park Hills Central. But they'll be involved in districts. Both those schools will, with Dexter, so and New Madrid and Notre Dame. So a lot of exciting competition to come up here, and we hope to keep the folks here at YHC and SEMO Sports Zone involved with that.
Sure. Yeah, we'll try to certainly keep up with the wrestling scene this year. I know we've done well in Southeast Missouri.
We sure have.
On the individual level, certainly.
All 7 programs, not including now St. Gen and Farmington and Park Hills, but all 7 schools that have wrestling in Southeast Missouri sent wrestlers to state last year. I didn't mention earlier, as far as Dexter goes, we bring back 3 wrestlers this year that went to state last year. So it's a good, strong club once everybody figures out where they're going to wrestle at, and once all the pieces are in place as far as the varsity is concerned. Going to be a very, very solid squad. A lot of fun to watch there in Dexter.
Sure.
So hopefully the folks will come out and really support the wrestling team.
Sure. And we'll be keeping an eye on the wrestling scene this year here in Southeast Missouri. We'll depend on Travis to help us out. Travis certainly up to date with the wrestling here in Southeast Missouri. And let's go ahead and wrap up the football season. We've had the postseason awards here in the last week, and we'll go ahead and touch on those. The Card Trophy winner this year to Romello McCoy of Malden. Had a great season for the Malden Green Wave this year. He's also SEMO Sports Zone's most outstanding player, and fine choice there, Romello McCoy.
Romello is certainly very deserving. I believe he was the leading rusher of all the schools in Southeast Missouri this year. Had an outstanding season, very good defensive ball player as well. So, yeah, very deserving. Malden's first Card Trophy winner, I understand. And no doubt he deserved it. And he's having a good basketball season here to start off as well.
Sure. Great athlete. Great kid, too. He
seems to be a fine young man.
He's certainly a fine kid there in Malden with Romello McCoy. So congratulations to Romello McCoy for this year's Card Trophy winner. And also another Coaches of the Year, we have Kent Gibbs of Sykeston, Nathan Morgan of Crothersville, and Jeff Bullock of Portageville. Basically a 3-way tie for Coaches of the Year. And worth noting that Jeff Bullock received the Coach of the Year from SEMOSportZone.com, and 3 deserving coaches there. Basically a different story for each one of them. Kent Gibbs returning a team that lost a lot from last year. Crothersville's Nathan Morgan advancing his team to the semifinal round, 1 game away from the state championship, and Jeff Bullock basically a turnaround year, basically going 2-8, somewhere around 2-8 all the way to 9-2 or 10-2, 9-2 for the season. So a turnaround story there for Jeff Bullock. So
and SEMO Conference South champions, as well as number 1 seed in Class 1, District 1. So yeah, great turnaround there. That's a program that's been traditionally very strong in Portageville with Coach McKay. Had the reins there, and then they went through several lean seasons. I think they had a winless season just not too long ago. But congratulations to Coach Bullock. He's done a great job turning things around there. Looks for good things in the future for Portageville. As far as Coach Gibbs goes at Sykeston, it's also worth noting that he was inducted into the Missouri High School Hall of Fame as well as a coach this past week. So congratulations to Coach Gibbs. He's certainly one of the premier coaches and programs in Southeast Missouri.
Yeah, a great year for high school football, and 3 deserving coaches there between those here in Southeast Missouri.
And an honorable mention, I think, should probably go to Coach Brent Eckley up at Jackson.
Yeah.
Coming in as a first-year coach and restoring the pride of Indian football. That was another traditional Southeast Missouri football powerhouse that has really struggled the last few seasons. And he's really come in and turned that program around, taking them all the way to the district championship game and the number 1 seed. They did fall in that game, but that's another program that we're going to look for big things from them in the years to come.
Yeah, and mentioning Jeff Bullock, he's been out of football for
he has
I think since the early 2000s.
That's right.
So he's been out of football coming in first year with Portageville coming off a rough season, so that's a nice story in that as well, coming back to the game after taking some time off from football. So great coaches there for Coaches of the Year. And another award we have was issued is that's the Derlin Moore Award, goes to Blake Flanagan of Sykeston. So that wraps up the postseason football awards for Southeast Missouri football. And now we'll go to the SEMO Sports Zone Final 15 poll to wrap up the season here in Southeast Missouri. Crothersville on top at number 1, 2 Park Hill Central, 3 Sykeston, 4 Jackson, 5 St. Genevieve, 6 Cape Central, 7 Fredericktown, 8 Valley Catholic, 9 Charleston, 10 Poplar Bluff, 11 Malden, 12 New Manor County Central, 13 Portageville, 14 Hayti, and rounding out the top 15 is Scott City. And as we mentioned, most outstanding player Romello McCoy of Malden, and Coach of the Year Jeff Bullock of Portageville. So there's your final 15 poll from SEMOSportZone.com. So another great year in high school football, pretty much wrapped up after those postseason awards. So just another great year in the can.
That's true. That's true. We sent one of those schools, Valley Catholic, went up to competed in the Class 1 state championship, took it on the chin there from Penny. But if you watch that game, you know that Penny pulled away late. They scored like 3 touchdowns in a minute and a half.
Yeah. It was a great game to watch.
It was a back and forth game. Boy, Valley jumped out on them 14-0. Looked like they were just going to run away with it. Mm-hmm. And then Penny sort of settled in, and it was that game. In my opinion, really turned on one play. Valley came back and they scored after they were up 21-7, and they stopped Penny, forced them to punt. They had a nice punt return, and then the Valley kid coughed it up, and the Penny kid made a great catch. Fell out of bounds with it. They went down and scored and just took over from there. I think they scored like 8 touchdowns in a row, and Valley was just kind of shell-shocked. They didn't know what had hit them. But that's a young Valley team. You talk to the folks up in St. Gen, they didn't expect the kids from Valley to make it that far this year. So that's a young team. They're going to bring back most of that team, including their outstanding running back, just a junior.
Tyler Fuller, is that right?
Yeah, Fowlert.
Fowler, okay.
And boy, he's
a horse
on both sides of the ball. So Valley will be right back in the mix, competing for a state championship next year in Class 1.
And the game that I enjoyed watching was that Class 3 final,
Maryville and John Burroughs.
Maryville and John Burroughs. That Zeke Elliott is something
He can do it all,
else.
can he?
My goodness, going to Ohio State next year, and we'll see him on TV quite a bit, I'm thinking, over the next few years. Yeah. He took over that game, and I was kind of surprised that they didn't go to him late in that game. He was making big plays, and then there at the end when they need a play, they went to some passing plays.
That's
but
right.
Certainly he's going to be a talent to look forward to there at Ohio State the next few years.
Yeah, Maryville had a very good team, but clearly Zeke was the best player on the field. He was probably the best player I saw. Now, I didn't see the Class 6 championship game, but of the others I saw, he was the outstanding player that I saw in all those games.
Maryville is probably just the more complete team. They had a really effective offensive line. They moved the ball up the field methodically. So
they certainly had a size advantage on the line, and the longer the game went, that was evident. John Burroughs really depended on the big play, and they got a lot of them. Mm-hmm. But as the game went on, Maryville's size just really took over on the line. But that was a good football.
John Burroughs had a chance late if they just made a stop with just a few minutes to go, but
could have got it back.
Maryville just kept moving the ball up the field, and
got a late touchdown to really put it away there, a late pick six. So, but good football game. How about that Lamar team that Caruthersville ran into? Very, I don't want to say weird. Unique, let's say, offensive system, but it works for them. 2 quarterbacks in the backfield, a lot of misdirection, you never know where the ball's going, and they flat took it to Caruthersville. But that's another team that has pretty much the core of that team coming back. They're going to be very dangerous and very competitive for a state championship next year. The sad thing is Lamar was a pretty young team too. A lot of sophomores and juniors on that team, so they're going to be right back in the mix as well. And of course, what can you say about Webb City? I mean, they need to move up in class is all I can say, because it's clear that nobody in Class 4 can even compete with. They didn't have a close game. They just hammered Elias Catholic and just.
What was the final of that one? I can't remember.
They ended up beating them by about 3 touchdowns. I mean, they had them down 42-7 at the half, and
boy.
and probably put their JV in, and still Elias only scored maybe 1 touchdown after that. And that was a good football team. I mean, Elias Catholic's got a good program up there in Jefferson City. But Webb City, they just run that misdirection. And normally they don't throw the ball at all. And they just run that misdirection, wing T offense. And you just can't stop them. And they're so good on defense. They run it to perfection. They were the best coach team that I saw up there. They did everything. And they're not giants over there. I don't know. But they run that program. They run that offense to perfection. They're so solid on defense.
They remind me of, I don't know if you remember Platte County in the early 2000s when I was in school. They were similar. You look at them, looking across, they don't look intimidating, but once you get out there, they do everything perfect. They block, their blocking assignments are on cue, everything's on cue, and you can't stop them. It's hard to stop when everybody's doing exactly what they're needing to be doing.
The touchdown Elias scored right before the first half ended was off of a rare Webb City mistake. They fumbled the ball, and Elias had a good quarterback. They did throw the ball effectively, just not enough. So just another dominant performance from Webb City, and what a program! They need to move up just to make it fair, just to give somebody else in Class 4 a chance. It's oh well.
Yeah, that's awful nice if you got it working for you. That's for sure. So.
You know what you got to do in Class 4 if you want to win a state title. It runs through Webb City, folks. That's just all there is to it.
Yeah, and Sykeson's been on the verge of making that title game, but just can't quite get past that semifinal round. That's tough football once you get into that semifinal round.
It really is.
It's very competitive. I mean, these programs, they play, 22 kids on the field, offensive, defensive, and they're complete 22.
That's true.
It's hard to overcome that kind of talent.
I think football in Southeast Missouri is definitely on the rise from what we saw last year. We talked about the resurgence of Portageville and also Jackson. Charleston we saw a lot of good things happen in Charleston this year. Another program that's traditionally strong, that's really struggled the last few seasons, but they reemerged with a nice 8-3 season. They lost twice to Caruthersville, including in the district championship game. But Charleston looks like they're headed in the right direction. So there's a lot of good things on the horizon, I think, for football in Southeast Missouri. So already can't wait for next season.
Sure, we'll be looking forward to it. Once again, come summertime, it's ready. It's like, let's go.
That's it. I know Coach Pixley's already got his boys back in the weight room. Yeah. Dexter really had a young team that struggled a lot this year, just won 1 game, but I know he's expecting big things out of the next couple of seasons especially. So hopefully Dexter football will be back where they should be over the next 2 seasons.
All right. And that's pretty much what we've wrapped up today. A lot to get to. We're going to pretty much be into high school basketball and wrestling now from here on out.
That's
high
right.
School basketball, in full swing now, and we'll be looking forward to the SEMO Conference Tournament next week.
Kicks off Monday.
Kicks off Monday night, and we'll be watching that as well as other games we'll be having here on YHC TV and online at SEMOsportzone.com. So, Travis, we appreciate you coming on today, talking with us, and we'll be having you on periodically about the high school basketball and certainly about the area wrestling scene. So
I think YHC's got a big game. We're broadcasting Tuesday night.
Caruthersville
and Kennett.
Yeah,
always a barn burner. Kennett's kind of owned Caruthersville for the last few years. I know Caruthersville's looking to break that streak, and with some injured kids from Kennett, this may be their shot. So. Some great games coming up, and I know YHC is going to be carrying a lot of them.
Sure. We'll be out and about. We've got 3 games next week and a lot more games on the schedule to come, so look forward to those here on YHC and online at SEMOsportzone.com. And Travis, we appreciate you coming on. And we'll
always a pleasure
having you on, and it's worth noting Travis has got a column on SEMO Sports Zone. It's Q's Corner, so be sure to check that out weekly. They're on SEMOsportzone.com. He's just going to drop a bit of knowledge about SEMO sports and sports in the area. So be sure to check out his column on SEMOsportzone.com. We appreciate you providing that as well.
I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to do it. I'm going to My next column is going to be on giving a preview of high school wrestling, maybe a little more in depth than we were able to get to today. So hope folks will log on to the new website and check the column out and give us a little feedback.
Sure. All right. We'll see you down the line, Travis. And
thank you.
Have a good week.
Thank you. Same to you. Hope that cold gets better.
I know it. you filling pulpit tomorrow. You better be ready as well.
Exactly.
All right, and we'll be back with developments of SEMOSportZone.com and also our TV basketball schedule coming up. Don't go away.
My country takes of thee, sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing. Land where my fathers died, land of the Pilgrim's pride, from every mountainside, let
Welcome to NFL Total Access,
the show that takes you inside the locker room and down on the field. With inside access to all 32 teams all year long. NFL Total Access, Monday through Saturday, only on NFL Network.
NFL Network, where football season never ends.
In addition to unlimited calling, New Wave telephone users have a wide range of great phone features available. And now with the help of New Wave Internet, they're even easier to use thanks to our convenient online phone manager. Just log on to your MyWave portal. Now phone features like call forwarding can be set up instantly from any computer. Reliably activate or deactivate your call forwarding. And even set your home phone to ring once when a call is forwarded. Home telephone service made even better with New Wave Communications. Call today.
And welcome back. And now let's talk about SEMOSportZone.com and a lot to look at that site currently. We've still got a lot to work on there, but SEMOSportZone.com is published and ready to view. Be sure to go online and check it out. As you see there, our homepage. As you go down, you'll see actually today's show, the Sports Roundtable, is online and available to watch live there through the website, and any webcast that we've got going on you can watch through our page as well. Like last night we had our webcast available online with Hawkham and Bernie, so we'll have all of our live broadcasts through there at SEMOSportZone.com, and also watch replays of the Roundtable and also our Sports Zone Report. As you go down, you'll see on the left side of the page the Sports Zone Report is our daily sports report on YHC TV, giving you results of the action in Southeast Missouri right there on your left. So you can see daily updates, daily video updates through SEMOSportZone.com of various sports. And you see there on the right side our Twitter and Facebook feeds. So be sure to like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, so you can keep up with all the updates going on here in Southeast Missouri. And on the right side, headlines, we basically give you up-to-date headlines with Southeast Missouri sports and the tournament brackets here locally. Keeping those available. So be sure to go check us out at SEMOSportZone.com, and also all of the Sports Roundtable programs and the broadcasts are available online. As you see on the top there, just click on videos. Go ahead and click on there, Rick, if you would. There are the videos on the top right there. Just click on videos and you can catch all of our broadcasts that we have here on YHC TV on SEMOSportZone.com on that videos link. As you see there, last week's Roundtable, the basketball preview, and this past Tuesday's game, Charleston and Dexter. You can watch all of our broadcasts online. They're on the videos link, so be sure to check that out at SEMOSportZone.com on the videos page. And we'll have last night's game, Hawkham and Bernie, available there on the front page as well as that video page online. So let everyone know. Great sports site online, SEMOSportZone.com. We'll be making more additions as the weeks progress. We're working on that currently on many projects on that site, so keep that in mind, SEMOSportZone.com. And now let's take a look at some upcoming games here on YHC on the schedule. We've got Tuesday night, Crothersville at Kennett. That'll be live from the Kennett Gymnasium. Thursday, Delta C7 at Risco. That'll be live from the Roy Hahn Gymnasium. Next Friday, we've got Malden at Campbell. That'll be live as well from Campbell. The next Tuesday, we'll be at Dexter for the SEMO Conference matchup, Jackson and Dexter. That'll be live once again. And the next Thursday, Holcomb at Hayti. That's going to be live as well from the Hayti Gymnasium. And that Friday will be Marmaduke at Rector down in Northeast Arkansas for a game. They're live from the Rector Gymnasium as well. So those are upcoming games here in Southeast Missouri. We'll be looking forward to having you along with us on those broadcasts. And I'm losing my voice, I'm going to wrap her up today. So glad you tuned in. Be sure to tune in for the replay of Bernie and Holcomb today at noon and 6:30 here on YHC. It'll be available on SEMOsportzone.com tomorrow, Sunday, for that on-demand viewing online. So glad you joined us today. We'll see you next week right here on the Roundtable. Until then, I'm Tyler Wagner. Have yourself a great week.